Beast Wars was a bold reimagination of the Transformers franchise.
I really believe that from there, we started our march to where we are today.
It's certainly a period of my career, and I think my colleagues are all very proud of.
It really set the stage for like the second big generation of Transformer fans. Transformers hit in the early 80s. It was a phenomenon. It was a huge toy line, had a great Transformers G1 series.
Transformers Gen 1 was an enormous growth period for Hasbro. It was part of when G.I. Joe came out, Gem, My Little Pony. We were pumping here, and Transformers captured the hearts and minds of almost every kid in America.
And like any life cycle of any brand, you have highs and lows. Mid-80s were great for Transformers.
By the time the early 90s was coming, Transformers just had no traction on the shelf as a toy. The show was just repeating itself.
We tried a lot of different things at that point. We did micro Transformers and weapon-based Transformers, and year over year we noticed a slide and a decline. So you get to the point in the early 90s where, in Transformers speak, there really wasn't much of a brand. Didn't have much of awareness. Other brands, more superhero-based brands, had come in and taken over the kids' mind share. So in order to kind of reinvigorate that brand, they took the bold step in changing them from cars and trucks and planes to apes and dinosaurs and bugs.
When Beast Wars came around with the new look, the new way things transformed, and particularly the subject of characters acting, it just revived the whole brand.
Well, look who's back.
The concept of animals had already been in the Transformers series. The Dinobots, the cassette tapes that Ravage and Laserbeak became, were based on animal forms. So it wasn't unfamiliar territory, and they had always done really well. Those are kids always like animals, and those things were something that I think at the time were probably worth exploring deeper, and they probably decided, let's make everything animals and see where that could go.
So we had this wonderful ability to turn robots into wasps, cheaters, dinosaurs, gorillas.
It really hit upon a division, not unlike the Autobots and Decepticons, where the Autobots are cars and trucks and the Decepticons were mechanical and military based, that the Maximals would be mammals, and the Predacons would be more bug and reptile formed.
It was fantastic because those animals were difficult to animate. It's far more difficult to animate an organic form that's biological, that we recognize what it should look like, we recognize how it should move. So this was an enormous challenge for us as animators, taking technology and just pushing it right to its limit.
Continued exposure to robotic forms will result in permanent damage.
Then we will create alternate forms based on the most powerful local creatures.
The toys came first in the sense that we were shown prototypes. I mean, we certainly didn't have the entire range of Transformers to work with initially. We saw some working prototypes that were phenomenal. I mean, from an engineering standpoint, these toys defied normal expectations of what a toy could do.
Transformers that were based on cars and jets were very square, and the movement was very in plane. Something moved up and down or left and right. What Beast Wars really brought to the table with their organic forms, because if you think of the alternative form, it's really a shell to hide the robot. In a car, it's a very mechanical feel, so you're going to get a mechanical transformation. With these beast forms, the way they were organically made, really changed how you had to hide the robot.
They had 100 moving parts. I mean, these things were a triumph of design.
It was really hard for Takara and the toy team to get the modes right. And then when you got into robot mode in Beast Wars, you had a lot of big parts kind of hanging around. So they really had a very different silhouette.
The innovation was the ball joint. So you were really able for the first time to take those forms and pose them 100%. Unlike your G1 Transformers that's really only raise the arm, lower the arm, bend the elbow in one plane, you could pose the Beast Wars toys out any number of ways. And it was really a bold, big step for that toy brand at that point.
We worked very, very closely with a company called Takara Toys out of Japan. They were the originators and actually the designers of a lot of the Transformer stuff.
Hasbro and Takara have always been partners on the Transformers brand. Each of us lead our own independent investigation of what could be next, and then we share those ideas and come to an agreement in most cases as to what we should do as a group and what we would do individually. So they were definitely involved with the development of the Beast Wars products and ideas early on, and definitely completed the models for Hasbro at that point.
They had the expertise, when you got to the nuts and bolts, but we pretty much were, the design team was going, all right, Optimus is going to be, a silverback ape, and we proceeded that way. Because we really were making this, for the U.S. audience. So we really tried to pick the animals, they would recognize them.
Moderate your conflict circuits, Maximals. Remember, these beast forms are to protect us from the long-term effects of the energon fields out there.
We may need Energon for power, but this is too much of a good thing.
At Hasbro, we left a lot of the actual animation, obviously, to Mainframe to do what they do best. But the picking of the characters and what characters we wanted to focus on for our product line, thus needing to be in the animation, and the direction of those character bios and colors were very much led by the Hasbro toy team at that point.
An engineer and a designer came from Hasbro, came to Kenner, formed a team, and then they built their relationships with Takara and our relationships with the animation studio. And from that kernel, we just kept growing that, growing that, growing that.
And I remember them being very particular about a range of colors so that you could get the pop on screen easily. If you look back to those shows, the backgrounds are pretty sparse. I mean, it's early days of CGI animation.
We didn't have any budget for backgrounds. You know, Mainframe, the only thing we said to him was we want every single piece of the toy is going to be on screen on those models. And we almost, we blew our whole budget on the characters. And the backgrounds were very blank.
So the colors of those robots really had to stick out as individuals from a distance and up close and from each other in a way that caused them to really think about the color of those products even more so than we normally, what you would think you would need.
I suggest we withdraw, Megatron.
The real challenge at those days was how do you take a complex model and render it for this new CGI show. And that was probably the most complex thing that they did, was take those models and scan them at the time, which was in its infancy.
Our designer lived at Mainframe. He'd go there, they'd work on the models, make sure they understood how everything opened and closed. We really concentrated a lot back then on perfect toy and show, which now isn't as important to us. But then we really, every single part was there in these the CGI models for the show.
Dinobot, maximize!
Optimus Primal, maximize!
The toys were great, but a toy unto itself, it doesn't talk, it doesn't think. You have to give it dialogue, you have to give it motive. You have to give them expressions, you have to create the relationships between the characters.
One of the things that CGI does for you is you can really make the faces act. And it really worked. And we got just great characters out of that. And that's when we went, whoa.
Hang on! You can't transform in this position!
Release me! Let me fall and save yourself!
Now, where's the honor in that?
You have no choice.
Then we both go!
Because it was a CGI show, there was only so many characters that could be included in the show, which allowed for the creative team to really develop those characters' personalities.
That was when we knew it wasn't just another cartoon show, that we had real characters that had a life, and our audience really cared about them. So CGI did a lot for us that way.
If you ever pull a stunt like that again, I'll have your tail in a sling.
Okay, I'll never do that again. Until the next time.
One of my first experiences with Beast Wars was getting that Optimus Primal toy. And I remember thinking how very different it was from my 80s G1 Optimus Prime.
It had been a classic big red truck, and that has a certain presence, and a silverback great ape is also equal to that kind of presence, and I think they did a good job picking that form.
Remember the Great War, Rat Trap. If the Predacons get enough Energon, they'll start it again. We can't let that happen.
I think part of the Beast Wars legacy is how endearing those characters are to the fans. For example, Dinobot is our first fan-nominated character to make it into the official Transformers Hall of Fame.
Everyone loves Dinobot. He was a fun character that played both sides, really was a Predacon that went to the Maximal side. Was able to offer up different tactics than the Maximals would have otherwise been inclined to use. So it made for good storytelling, and that character resonates.
Attention, Maximals! My name is Dinobot. I have left the Predacons to join your group as leader.
What? Did I hear the word leader?
This guy's got bearings of chrome steel.
Rhinox is your big, gruff, classic tank guy with the form of a rhinoceros.
He was a mentor, a friend. He was the character that you would see Optimus Primal share his thoughts with.
Taking Ironhide and some of the classic characters and templating them into this modern thing.
Cover fire. They need it, we give it. Now!
Cheetor was the young hot rod type character. He was the character you probably would most relate to if you were a 14-year-old watching the show back in the day.
You know, a lot of these characters were templated on things that had succeeded in the past. So I often think of Cheetor as the Bumblebee and/or Hot Rod type character.
He was cool and hip and young and
hopeful, you know, a lot of potential, and the form of a cheetah really also captured kids' imagination.
Hey, look at me! I'm a cheetah! No, I'm Cheetor!
Interesting.
Interesting? Optimus, the word is spot on smooth.
What they did great about Megatron is really kept the head. So if you are a fan of Megatron, you really knew this was the leader of the bad guys in this Transformer form.
As the show continued, you knew that this was a brand new character, and everything you thought you knew about Megatron just flew right out the window.
Well, leader, how shall we respond?
Megatron, you will allow me to lead?
A wise tyrant always allows a fool to take the lead in a crisis.
we got great comedic characters, which were my favorites. I loved Rat Trap, his Bronx accent. His guys, we gotta go. He was a rat. He really was.
Rat Trap was a great character. He spoke his mind. He was pessimistic. He was sarcastic. He was our comedy relief for most of the show.
Man, oh man, if I wanted to fly, I would have become a bat, not a rat.
And on the opposite side was Waspinator. You just couldn't wait to see the next time, Waspinator, oh, and he got blasted off into space, and he'd come back next week again, being really funny.
He became this kind of guy who wasn't all that smart and really didn't know what to do, and it caused him a lot of grief every episode. And it became a funny joke. But through that, people identified with him. We all make mistakes, and we all don't get our way, and you know, these epic battles don't really take place in our everyday lives. But what Waspinator went through, we kind of all do. And it was kind of fun to watch that guy get his every week.
Optimus Primal.
Scorponok is an awesome character as well.
Don't give me orders. I'm second in command. You will take the cannon back, and I will see to Optimus. You hear me? Tarantulas? Tarantulas?
We've used that name several times, and his name is Scorponok. We have used that name at Hasbro going all the way back to G1 Headmasters kind of era up through where we are today in the feature films, and that name is often mispronounced. So it's not Scorponox, it's not Scorponic, it's Scorponok. So that's my memory of that character.
Megatron back! Megatron back! Scorponok alone with Tarantulas and Pterosaur! Very bad!
Tarantulas was that character that is the scientist, the evil mastermind that's working against Megatron. Sometimes when the story would progress, Tarantulas would surprise you with his own doings and with his own agenda.
Lovely. Scanning, replication, and programming complete. The new Predacon form is everything we could desire. Meet Black Arachnia.
We had great female characters. Black Arachnia. She was bad. She was really bad. And the fans loved her, and that was pretty hard to do.
I'm the brain of this group, not the brawn.
Even though the Beast Wars story is over, those characters still pop up in various forms in various other types of Transformers entertainment.
You know what? The characters are what became important to the fans, and I think that's why it's had such a great life after.
Across the galaxy, it has come to this, Optimus Primal. Face to face, tooth to claw. Yes. Have you anything to say?
I'd say that's Prime.
Let's do it!
When I think of Beast Wars, I often think of the Beast Wars fans, because really there's two eras of Transformers. There's the G1 era, and then there's the Beast Wars era. And for a long time, it was quite polarizing. Some people thought, this is not what I grew up with or want, and then other people were like, this is brand new for me, and I think it's awesome. So in the fan community, there is kind of a side, truck not monkey, monkey not truck. And over the years, I think what Hasbro's been able to do is explain that both are valid and both are important to Hasbro and the plans we make. So the rift has not become a civil war.
We started to bring in and kept a lot of the old fans. They actually came over to the other side. And from what I understand now at BotCon, that fan base is still growing.
Despite the fact the show hasn't been on the air in 15 years. These fans are keeping the toys alive. They're still showing up to conventions like BotCon dressed as Beast Wars characters, and they've been getting younger and younger.
The fans of Beast Wars definitely look forward to the day that we tell more stories of Optimal, Cheetor, and all these guys, and I hope to give it to them.